Preachers' kids, if you don't know it, have 100 dads and 150 moms. People in the church, people in the community think that they have the right to tell us what to do and what not to do on every aspect of our life. That makes it hard. And if you have a wayward preacher's son or daughter, let me break it up into whether they're minors living at home or they're adults on their own. It's a little bit different, even though they're similar. If they're minors living in the home, first of all, maybe it's just the normal, ordinary doubting their faith, mild rebellion, that kind of thing. If that's the case, put your pastoral thinking aside, put your position aside, and be a normal, ordinary dad. Now that's harder for pastors to do than you think. Be dad. So you love them. Yeah, you give them consequences. You set boundaries, talk to them, and listen to them a whole lot and work with them to get through the angst that they're feeling for whatever reasons as much as you can. Now, it could be that my wayward preacher's son or daughter behavior is actually an indication of what we call a family systems issue. It's not just one child's problem. The problem is something here in the big system of the family, and while this child is the one that's making the squeaky noise, the real problem may be somewhere else. As clinicians, we always start with dad, mom, and the marriage, that unit first. What's going on with you guys? The next part that we look at is what is the impact of ministry on the entire family unit? Maybe a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. Together, though, is causing too much for this one child. So that's where I suggest if you seek counseling, go for a family therapist person that will work with the whole family, not just a counselor that will work with the son or daughter who's wayward only. Something that has to be put on the table is if your son or daughter is drowning, they're not making it emotionally, they're not making it socially, maybe even medically they're not doing so well. You have to put on the table of, do we need to take a sabbatical? A year, maybe even 2 years. Not for forever, for a season, so that we can get our family health back together before we re-enter the ministry. We're told that as bishops, as leaders of the church, to make sure our own house is in order before we try to get the house of God in order. So this one has to be there. It's hard, it's tough, it's an awful decision to have to make. I've worked with families that have had to do that. If your child is an adult now, and they're either on their own or they're in and out of the home a lot, some of these things are the same, a couple little changes. Number one is there's not a lot you can do to fix or change the situation. They're adults now, they're on their own, so realize there's not a lot you can do for them on that. Like I said before, even though they're on their own, making their own decisions, it can still be part of a family dynamic, a family systems issue. So all those things about looking at the family, looking at the impact that the ministry has on the family, still come into play. An added piece in this, though, is as an adult, what's the impact that they're having on you, dad or mom? What is the impact that they're having on younger siblings? Again, we may need to get some family therapy to help us as a family unit with the stresses of an adult child that's putting on us. And lastly, again, it needs to be on the table. Do we need to take a sabbatical for the sake of our family? Too many times I've heard, and it's separate from whatever generation, my generation, the generations that follow, the generations before me even, what I hear over and over again is, we are the sacrificial lambs on the altar of ministry. And I don't want that to continue. I hope I never, ever have to hear you make a hard decision of, I got to choose between my son or daughter or the pulpit. I hope that never happens. But if you do, choose your son or daughter and choose early. There's a lot less pain and damage to heal that way. Too many preachers' kids have left the faith, have gone prodigal because they weren't chosen over the pulpit. Don't add your son or daughter to that list. Please don't do that.